Unit 1, Part 8. Okay, so that's the kind of analysis we'll be doing in sentential logic, right? We'll be getting into the details of the analysis of sentences into their forms in the next few units. But as I said, units 10 through 16, we introduce a new kind of logic, predicate logic. Right. Sentential logic is called sentential logic because the basic elements are simple sentences, right? So the sentence, Dan is Australian, will just receive, as we have here, capital letter A, right? And logic is about form or structure, right? And so it's all about what are the basic elements, identifying the basic elements, and identifying how, and in sentential logic, the basic elements are simple sentences, like that. And it's all about how those simple sentences get combined, and combined with what? The answer for sentential logic is going to be sentential operators. How those simple sentences get combined into complex structures, into compounds, to more complex sentences. Okay, but we can capture the logical validity of many and formally, symbolically present the logical validity of many valid arguments using the resources of sentential logic, using the resources of sentential logic, but certainly not all of them, right? If you think about this argument, all Australians are surfers, first premise. Second premise, Dan is Australian. Conclusion, Dan is a surfer. It's clearly valid, right? You can intuit, you can see. If those premises are true, the conclusion is also necessarily true. But if we tried to formally present that argument, if we symbolize it according to the resources of sentential logic, we will not be able to see or capture or formally comprehend the validity of the argument, right? For reasons you will see in Unit 2, each of these sentences would count as a simple sentence in sentential logic, and each, since they're not identical, none of the sentences are identical, so they count as three different, three distinguished sentences, simple sentences. So the symbolization of argument 2 in sentential logic would just be something like A, B, therefore C, right? Or whatever, right? A, D, S, probably, right? Right? So the symbolization instead of that would just be A, D, S. And clearly these are all different, right? There's no connection between the sentences like you have here, right? This, you can read this as if A, then S, also you're given A, well, therefore S. Yes, I can see the formal validity. You can see the validity of that argument. You can't see it with this. For this argument, symbolized in sentential logic as so, you cannot see or capture, formally represent the validity of this argument. So we have an argument which is valid, but the validity of which the resources of sentential logic do not allow us to express, capture, or comprehend. Okay, that's why we need a new logic. That's why we introduce units 10 to 18, predicate logic, and the analysis of form is different in this logic, right? That's the crucial point. The analysis of the form of an individual sentence is different, right? In predicate logic, we break up simple sentences into predicates and names, right? So Dan is Australian, right? Here, Dan is Australian got the capital letter A in sentential logic, but in predicate logic, Dan is Australian will be a combination of two elements, right? Again, I'm just going to say this quickly to sort of whet your appetite, but we'll be going over the same thing in detail in Unit 10. Dan is Australian will be a combination of this thing, which is called the propositional function AX, which means X is Australian, X being an individual, right? We saw P and Q, I talked about P and Q, those are sentential variables that take as substitution instances complete sentences. here we've got AX, where X is an individual variable, where it takes as substitution individuals, lowercase letters like D or A, which stand for Dan or Andrew, or an individual. Right, so it's AX, and then D stands for Dan. AX, Dan is Australian, right? And that's going to be, so notice that that's going to be the symbolization of this simple sentence, Dan is Australian. So I just want you to get a sense of what it is to be a different logic. It's to be a different analysis of form. The very same sentence, Dan is Australian, sentential logic, just going to get a capital letter, A, right? In predicate logic, it's going to be A, D, right? Which is a combination of the propositional function AX and the individual constant D. Predicate logic is also called quantificational logic because when we have propositional functions like this, we can also use quantifiers, and we'll be able to say all Australians are surfers. It's going to look like this. For all X, if X is Australian, then X is a surfer. Children.